So welcome to day 14 of our Canada payroll. Today we'll be talking about more about customizing the payroll schema. The basic schema we have seen, how a basic typical schema looks like. And today actually the focus of our topic will be like in what all scenarios, in 90% of the cases, we customize our payroll schema and how to customize it. Today we'll be talking about it. Okay? And this is from my experience. I have aggregated different information from different private projects. Okay, so ideally in a typical project, this is the most of the scenario. I'll be covering 12 scenarios and I'll be discussing what are those. And some of them is little easier and some of them little complex. So it is a mix of bag of all kind of scenario which I'll be talking about. So let's get started then. So this is the basic one, which the first one which I was talking about, the simple rule, how to access a rule. When I say PCR, the full form is personal calculation rules. Okay, so we'll be trying to understand. So the transaction code is PE02, which is basically used to access any of the existing rules, whatever the existing, whether it is a standard rule or it is a custom rule in the payroll, we can access by using this transaction code PE02. Let's say you are tomorrow or day, someday you are working on a support project. It may happen because in most of the organizations already implemented SAP. So payroll, so you may get a chance to go through the existing rule. Okay, so how to go through that? So this transaction code PE02 will be helping you to access that particular rules editor. Okay, the screen is called the transaction code is PE02, and you can go through that, and we'll be try to understand what are the different rules and what are the different texts are available, what are the different approaches, okay, what are the different flags available. Okay, so in that we'll be seeing all those details. Okay, so this is how a typical rules look like. Okay, so which we have earlier seen how a typical JDM JWLV, this is a custom rule. So most of those cases you will be finding the custom rules generally starts from G or Z, whatever you say. So in that way you can understand how a typical whether it is a standard rule or custom rule. Okay, so this is how a typical rules will be looking like, and under each rule you will be having three sections. One is source text, second one is attribute, third is documentation. Okay, so documentation is a best practice. Suppose in case if you are customizing any standard, customizing any rules, okay, it is always better to have a document inside the system. Anyway you will be updating, or your support consultant, they will be having their notes prepared. Okay, why they have documented, what are the purpose of that particular PCR. But it is always better to have a documentation inside the system itself. Okay, so this is just a purpose of so this rule which I have shown to you. This is the purpose of the rule, is basically the what are the different conditions of your personal leave, half paid sick leave, unpaid sick leave. Okay, so these are the different rules, sample rules, how a typical rules look like. And this rules is not only applicable for payroll, also this is a scenario which I have given to you. This is the rules specific for a time management module. Okay, so even suppose in tomorrow you will be learning say time management. In time management also we do have this schema, PCR and everything. Okay, so this, because schema is architecture is means it holds both your payroll as well as the time management, both the modules. Okay, so you'll be finding all this structure like source text, attribute, documentation, rules across the module very similar. Okay, so this is a different this is how a typical rules look like. And so this is another rule which is actually I have given, like processing old area table. Suppose you are having some old areas. Okay, so how to process those old area table. Okay, so that is another rule, sample rule I have given here. This is an example again. Okay, depending upon your waste types and all. So in a typical rules, you will be finding different sections. Okay, rule type, it can be different rule type. Okay, so you'll be finding rule type you'll be seeing different rule type D, rule type S, rule type P. Okay, so this is a little technical for understanding, but actually from a configuration point of view, you do not have to worry about it. So actually we have to understand the concept here, like what are the structure, how a typical structure of a rules look like, what are the under rule will be having your operations, functions. Okay, so ADTWT, it is very simple one. Here in this example I have given ADTWT means it will be adding a waste type. Okay, so this is a typical example how a typical rules look like. So similarly you can have access. So you have any question here?
Yeah, so we can change any rule anytime as per our requirement.
Actually, it is best practice not to touch any standard rule. What we do generally, we copy the
Mm-hmm.
standard rule, and whatever it is similar to, very similar to schema, Jera. So
Okay.
whatever the
Mm-hmm.
schema, the way we followed approach, like means
Mm-hmm.
every country specific will be having your own specific standard rules and all. Generally, we
Mm-hmm.
copy that, and we after copying this anyway, I'll showing that system. After copying the
Okay.
standard one, we generally modify as per your client requirement. We generally
Mm-hmm.
modify depending to meet your requirement. Mostly it will be happening like scenario, the most common scenario which I'll be talking just after 5 minutes, okay, which then you'll be able to understand better way. So these are the different source code, like you can also write the source code here, like different operations, okay. So these are little technical, I understand, but mostly if you're working a support project, only you have to just tweak. Okay, you don't have to do it from the scratch. Okay, only in case if you're
Mm-hmm.
working in a implementation, and if your client is having more complicated schema and the PCRs and all this requirement they do have, then only you have to go for it. Otherwise, this code statement sometimes you may take help from your ABAP. Okay, the technical consultant, they may help you, and they will be just embedding that code inside this. Okay, so you'll be giving the logic to them, and you can write those rules or operations, whatever. Okay, so these are the different operations which I was talking about, right? So this is good to
Mm-hmm.
remember, but most frequently used operations, like I have given this example, ADDCU. What it will do? It will be adding. So it is an operation which will be used to create CRT table. CRT, what is the CRT table? In the payroll log we have seen in the earlier session, which is known as a cumulative results table. Okay, it will store all of your payroll results into this particular table, which is a CRT table. Okay, so depending upon your processing class types is 30. So this is ADDCU. Similarly, we do have another operation which is known as an ADDWT. Okay, this is the most frequently used. So you'll be coming across this operation most frequently in any of the payroll schema rules everywhere. Okay, those this is what it will do. It will be writing the waste type into the IT table, input table. Okay, so in the inside your input table, it will be writing all those specific waste type. What are the character, whatever your operation you are having. Okay, so this is in the typical rules we'll be finding like this. ADDWT means ADDWT operations. Okay, so this is an in the part it will be adding that particular waste type, whatever the waste type. Similarly, this is the list is actually I have given a lot of means most frequently we use. So you can just go through it. I'm not because I'm not going through each and every because there are so many operations you'll be finding. Okay, in a typical payroll program like DIVID is for division. Similarly, CMPR is comparison of two payroll period. AMT, that is for amount. Okay. So whenever I'm giving an example, I have also given in a screenshot like how a typical how in a particular rule how this operation will be looking like. AMT means amount equal to 50. Okay, so whenever by default your operation, you're suppose we are putting a by default amount. Okay, so for a particular waste type. Okay, if nothing is mentioned, then automatically system should consider this amount as a 50. Okay, so this kind of tweaking we can do depending upon your scenarios. Okay, because there are many operations, we should know which operations would be used at what time. Okay, between what scenario. Okay, so similarly DIVID. So in this example I have given, suppose the value you would like to have particular amount and you have a particular number. So if you are using DIVID operations, automatically it will divide amount by number. Okay, so 50 by 5 equal to 10. Okay, so in this way there are many similar operations which I'll be taking you through. So similarly LME is also actually it will eliminate a split indicator. Okay, so generally what happens, what is a split indicator? Suppose due to, as I was mentioning in one of the sessions in the previous session, factoring, we talked about factoring. Okay, so it may generally what happens, suppose in the middle of the month, suppose a person is joining, or it may happen like there is some pay master data changes happen to the particular employee or promotion or any kind of pay hike in the middle of the month. Okay, so in that case you will be having two different operations, and you will be having two records actually. Okay, in a typical pay slip, suppose if you're seeing the pay slip, so in the pay slip you'll be seeing two different line items. So how to avoid that? Okay, so you can use this particular operation which will be eliminating your split indicator. Okay, so it can be absence, it can be due to your work center period. Okay, so in those cases you will be using, so in this LME, so the LME operations. Okay, so these are different operations which will be most frequently using in a typical payroll implementation project. Hmm. Similarly, error, how to see those error log, multiply means multiplication. Okay, so there are many of such operations. Now I'll be talking about those 12 case studies. Okay, what are those case studies? Mostly you'll be coming across. Okay, the first case study is very important one. Okay, so this is basically your enterprise structure driven requirement. Okay, as you know, what is an enterprise structure? You have already understood in the PA module, like in PA module or OM module you have seen. So there can be different types of employee, or depending upon the different geographical locations, you can have different employees. Let's say you are having a different rules for people who are working in different locations, or you are having different grades of employee. Okay, so how those requirements can be fulfilled? So by using these two kinds of operation, that is OUTWP and OUTWP PERSG. PERSG means depending upon your employee group, it will separate the logic for calculations. So you do not have to create a multiple wage types for different categories of employee. Having the same wage type, you can put it into the rule so that it will be working differently. Okay, so this is one of the example which I have given. I've taken a screenshot. So like suppose you are having a particular wage type ADDWT. Okay, and the wage type is a 5001. Okay, but depending upon your say employee grouping, okay, E, or it can be a E, or it can be S. Okay, depending upon whether it is a regular employee or it is a salaried employee, or it is he's a contractual employee. Okay, depending upon that, suppose the rate is varying. Okay, suppose the 5001 is, suppose let's say it is an say overtime wage type. Okay, and the overtime wage type will vary depending upon your employee category. Okay, the rate will be varying. Okay, say you are offering some other different amount. Okay, so depending upon that, this is just an example how you can write inside the rule. Okay, so how to differentiate? So hierarchy means actually you're defining all those categories of employees, and depending upon that, you will be having you can define in this operations in this example. Okay, so this logic you can build like depending upon your, if the employee group. Okay, if the employee group is E, then you set the rate a particular rate, and if the employee group is something else, you can put another rate. So this is just an example to showcase where same is applicable for different other scenarios as well. So this is a common requirement across. So for that reason, I kept it in the first case study. Okay, so this example which you can use and you can utilize. You can inside your rule, you can write, you can mention this, and you can say similarly the same wage type will be behaving differently. Okay, so this is a first case study. Then second one is simple one. Second one in actually it is a basic depending upon your wage type driven requirement. So first one we have seen employee or structure or your enterprise structure dependent. Second one is the wage type driven. Okay, suppose a particular wage type depending upon a particular wage type. Okay, SAP is already predefined delivered rules, custom rules and all. So there is a particular operation which will be coming into picture here, VWTCL. Okay, so what it will do, it will read the processing class 90. Okay, so in a typical example, you'll be seeing in a particular wage type, we are having a processing class 90. It will process that particular wage type. And you can write depending upon your scenario. So same wage type, how it will be behaving depending upon your processing classes. Okay, so this is a common, so which depending upon the wage type, you can manipulate. Okay, so this is one of the example which I have given here. Say here actually in this scenario you'll be finding, so say any XTR. So what are the operation you can use? That is your any XTR, then use ADDWT, this operations you can use it. Suppose here example actually I have given, like you are using a wage type, say 0750 will be having a number equal to 0, but amount will be divided by factor 10. Okay, so for, depending upon the particular wage type, it will divide and it will be calculate those particular wage. So if I just zoom it, so you have OPIND, you have amount divided by 10. Okay, so whatever the amount you are having, So depending upon your that particular waste type, okay, say ADDWT 0750 I have given, okay. So what it will do, it will just divide by 10 depending upon your this BWTCL processing classes, okay. So this is another example, okay. So you'll be coming across, but most popular is the first one which I've told you. So say another example is which I was talking about, the split. Hmm. For any kind of split, okay, so where can be the split happen? So this is actually a common interview question as well. So what are the different types of changes and in what cases actually you will be having come across a split scenario, okay. So in case, so in what cases split will happen? Suppose let's say if you are changing any master data in your for your employee, say you know info type 1, 7, 8 or 27, okay. So these are the four info types which is actually work schedule rule, that is for info type 7, info type 8 is for basic pay, info type 27 is for cost distribution, or info type 1. So such are the, see that these are four different info types. If you're changing anything in between of the payroll period, okay, there will be splitting of a waste will happen, okay. So how to manage those split, okay. So actually what will happen, there will be no problem in the your payment. Employee will be anyway paid whatever amount he will be paying, but it will be having an impact on the report actually, okay. So generally if you are having a report, where exactly it will happen, it can happen to a report or any kind of waste type report or journal or a financial posting. All those cases actually you will be problem of splitting. So same waste type, suppose basic pay, your HRA or whatever, depending upon your Canadian government. So all those waste type will be shown as two times. Okay. So in those cases, to eliminate, SAP provides the standard operation which is called LME and it just set in. Okay. So these are the two operations which you can use for handling this kind of scenario, okay. So for this elimination, okay, so this is a common scenario during your implementation we will be getting coming across, okay. So or if you're planning for a rollout for a new country, okay, so this kind of scenario you have to handle by using this operations called elimi and your setting, okay. So this operation will be helpful for that. So this is an example, okay. So like this is how a typical example how it you will be writing, okay. So just inside the rule you will be adding a one line which says LME star set in 1 equal to 01 ADDWT star. So whatever are the waste type, okay, you are using, okay, so for your organization, okay, so it will just eliminate those splitting, okay, and your setting. So we have used both the operation LME and your setting, okay. So these two operation you can use it for in handling such kind of splitting scenario, okay, because many of the organization I have seen this they use it, okay. 99% cases you will be coming across this scenario whenever you are implementing any project. It's not only for Canada payroll, for any other country payroll as well. So these rules, whatever I'm talking about, this is a generic one. Okay, so what are the case studies? It is not countries, it is country agnostic. It doesn't depend upon any other country. Okay, so mostly these operations, these are all universal or global in nature. For every country, most of the cases you'll be finding this rules. Okay, so if you're understanding for Canada payroll, same will be applicable for whether you are studying US payroll or Australia or New Zealand or any other country payroll in the future you would like to explore, it will be helpful for you. Okay, so this is the concept of your LME functionality or adjusting how to adjust the splitting of the waste types. Okay, so this is your case study number 3. Then next case study is very simple one. Okay, so this is all about the retro. Okay, so what is a retro? So it is a retro is a common scenario or any very common phenomenon in any country payroll. Okay, so for depending, suppose there is some conditions like depending upon your retro, some decision to be happen. Okay, so there is this by default system provides a operation called retro. Okay, RETRO, and depending upon yes or no, okay, suppose there is a condition, if there is a retro, then you have to do some certain function, certain you have to activate something, okay. If you are not, there is no retro, then you add some other waste types, okay. So this is again a scenario where exactly to check inside your payroll if there is a retro depending upon your logic. So I'm not talking about the entire logic of here, okay. Suppose depending upon certain conditions you are driving a particular logic. So in those cases you can use this retro functionality, retro operations rather I will say, and this is a sample code snippet how you can use a retro. Okay, so simply if you are using say yes, then you have to say particular operation, then it will be proceeding for the next logic. Okay, so this is the concept of a retro. Similarly, another popular one is the rounding off. So rounding off is again a common scenario in most of the in 99% all the cases you'll be finding a rounding off. It may happen. So like up to what decimals, or up to what mostly to up to 2 points after decimals. Okay, so whatever depending upon your conditions. So this there is a predefined operations which SAP provides. You can use ROUND, that is the operations name, and using that ROUND, simply you have to, so this is your sample code snippet. Okay, so like I have mentioned around ROUND GK 100 MULTI. So generally it will be multiplied by 100. So what is the meaning of it? It will be multiplied by 100 and it will check the next 2 points. Okay, so this is the 1001. Suppose a sample waste type is my 1001. Okay, so it is simply rounding off your particular operations into a particular waste types depending upon your calculations. Okay, so this is another scenario which you will be coming across, where exactly you have to write this simply you need to write this line item whenever you are going to round off something, a particular waste type. So here actually I have given a sample example 1001. Similarly, suppose you have 5 different waste types, or you are having a gross, only the gross amount you are going to do that. Okay, so which are the different waste type if you like to round off? Same, you can mention those waste types in a different line item inside the rule. Okay, so say after that you have to, if you execute, then automatically it will be taken care. Okay, so this is another case study which is actually how to manage a rounding of scenario. Okay, so this is will be also common across. Okay, and the next one, actually this is an I have used this rule for a UK payroll, but same principle is also applicable for your Canada or any other country payroll. Okay, so here using a payroll period, the sixth case study actually talks about how to use a payroll period. Okay, so it may happen in a typical organizations, all of your performance bonus or executive compensation, or it can be share your profit sharing. Okay, so it will be, suppose it is happening in a typical month, a particular month. Okay, so or it may happen, so it will check. So in this scenario which I have given, okay, in this figure you'll be finding it will check the payroll period is 13. Okay, suppose you are having a 24 payroll period in a typical year. Okay, so let's say every 15 days or fortnightly you are paying. Okay, so you have, suppose if you have a rule, say every 13th payroll period, if the current period is 13, then automatically you will be getting a 50 Great Britain pound. Here I have given a UK payroll example from one of my projects, but it can be happen for Canadian payroll as well. The same principle will be applicable. So how to check whether it is a 13th period or it is suppose you are talking about say we are having a 12 period, then you can write you, and every sixth period you are paying. Okay, so you can mention CMPER MM03, MM06. Okay, so CMPER, what it will do? So this CMPER operation. Okay, so this is actually not very popular. So mostly I have no, means one or two projects I have used it, but this is also where you can use. So if your organization is having such requirement, okay, so CMPER, if this comparing, if it is a true, if it is less than, if it is equal to, and if it is greater than. Okay, so what are the different three conditions? Only in case it is equal to. So I just zooming it, this particular rule, if you see, okay, if it is a less than or greater than, there will be no change. Only in case if you are having say equal to, if it is a particular month, say 13th period, or it is a sixth period which I was talking about, then in that particular period only you will be adding that performance bonus amount. Okay, so suppose if it is a universal in nature, depending upon in a 7001 waste type, it's just an example. Okay, so you can use this such kind of rule depending upon your payroll period. Okay, so any questions till now? What are the six case study which I talked about, Jera?
Actually, I'll get clarity when you show it on the system, because
Uh-huh.
I so right now I didn't get it.
Okay, okay. So this is the sixth case study which I was talking about. So seventh one is XMES operations, which what it will do, it will identify your waste type or occurrences conditions. Okay, so what it will do, Suppose if you like to have some message to write in your payroll log, any custom message, then in that case you'll be using this XMES operations. Okay, the seventh one. Eighth one, what it will do, actually eighth one will be just if you're having two different rules, and one rules you have written a custom rule type P, another you have written a rule type G. Okay, so in case if you like to have one rule calling to another rule, okay, so in that case you'll be using this case study. Okay, so it may happen one particular rule is depending upon another rule. Okay, so in those scenario you'll be using this case study number 8. This can be also a scenario, but it is in case of very complicated rules you are writing. Okay, so in that case you will be using this case study, which is a case study number 8. Okay, so this is another one. Similarly, you have another case study which talks about your base technical waste type to derive a new waste type. Okay, so let's say you are depending upon a total deduction or a total net pay. Okay, depending upon that, if your particular value is depending. Okay, in that case you can use, this is another case study. Okay, so you can create a new accumulation. Okay, technical waste depending upon this particular waste type. Okay, though then it will be calculating your particular color, whatever the waste type will be adding that. Okay, this is another case study. And another case study which I came across, generally how to manipulate your input type 8. Okay, so it may happen there is a operation called table. Okay, so there is a operation pre-existing table called table, and if you are using, there is a table, fixed table 510L. Okay, so if you are using this particular operation, you can manipulate your info type 8. What? Okay, so to reading that particular info type, whether that particular info type has having particular value. Okay, so if the amount is equal to 100, okay, so if it is less than, then you can add 100. So these are different scenario which you can use for manipulate. But first six which I talked about, those are the most frequently used. And case study 11 is all about your minimum waste type. Okay, so like there is a table called T51511K, where exactly you can maintain your minimum wage type. Okay, so it is applicable mostly wherever in all those industry where you have to pay the minimum wage. Okay, so those industry. Okay, so it will check that particular whether you are paying actually the minimum base pay or not. Okay, system will check, and accordingly it will be giving the warning during your payroll execution. If any of the employees paid less than the minimum amount, minimum wage type, minimum wage act. Okay, there can be different policies depending upon your organization. Okay, so you are just maintaining that particular value. Okay, after maintaining that, if your value is exceeding, or if in case it is falling below that, okay, so then system will be giving a message. Okay, this is another case study which you can use, and the constant which you will be using here actually KZR FTD, that is the constant. In the constant table actually it will be 511K. Okay, so that is that table. And similarly, there can be another scenario where exactly you have to use a particular temporary variable. Okay, so this scenario also temporarily you are storing a particular waste value in a particular waste type for calculation purpose only. So in those cases also you can use this scenario. So like it will just verify you just a logic like whether it will vary or not, whether this value is existing or not. Okay, so in this case also you can use this particular case study, which is the last case study of yours. Okay, how to use a particular temporary variable and all. Okay, so now I'll just going through the system and I will just explain you. Let me log into the system. Let me stop sharing, and I will be again after logging in. I will. Okay. So there are different transactions which I was talking about. Slash and P02 first you will see. Okay. So here you can see all the standard rules which will be existing. Okay. So what you can do simply, suppose you are interested only for payroll. Okay. Simply you will filter it, and the country grouping what it will do. Simply you have to use whatever the country you are using. So 07 is for Canada. Okay. After doing this, if you execute, Suppose you're interested for only seeing the custom specific rule. Okay, so you can use the last one. So there will be a mix of standard rules and standard and custom rules only. Okay, so if you like to see any custom rules, what of the client is using, okay, you can execute here. So you can see there are many rules which people have created, more approximately 50. But you never ever create rules like this. Somebody has created like equal to 930 equal to 935, but actually it is not a standard naming convention. Generally, we do not write such kind of rules. Okay, somebody might have written, but ideally the rules will be looking like the custom rules looks like this only. G045, Z210. Okay, so these are the how a typical rules will be looking like. Okay, so which I was just right. I've written just a small rule which I'll just show you. Okay. That is for say Canadian. These are all standard. Some of those are custom only. Area payment processing. Okay, so this is actually calculate arrears payment processing. This is one of the rule. ZFRS. Okay, so once you click that particular rules, simply you have to change. Suppose if you, in case if you would like to change something, okay, so you can go to and change here. Okay, so what you can do, so this rule is okay. So if you see the below section, there's a message called rule okay. That means this rule is perfectly fine. Okay. So in this particular rule, what we have done, so like a payment towards the area. Okay, so what is the waste type we'll be using? Suppose in our scenario we have used, there is specific waste type 9,000, which will be talking, which will be actually be using in your payment towards your area. Okay, so in this below section you'll be finding there is something called amount multiplied by -1, ADDWT divided by 101. Okay, divided by 101. Similarly, amount multiplied by -1, LME. Okay, ADWT divided by 110 RT. This is actually sequence of your activities, or it's a sequence of logic. Okay, what it is doing basically, it is just whatever the amount we are having, we are entering in your input type, sorry, the waste type 9001. Okay, simply it will just to check and whether it is actually 100 particular results table. Okay, so it will just check that results table. Then after doing this, it will just try to so first it will multiply -1, again it will, after the results is stored, again it will multiply by -1. Okay, so then it will be just eliminate your what is the if there is any splitting. Okay, while doing this calculation of your arrears, simply it will just remove that splitting. Then finally it will be adding your particular wage type. This is a simple understanding of your how a typical rules have been written, but generally how to write a rule. Okay, so just simply what you have to do, so you have to, suppose if you write to modify some, so let's say I'll just choosing a standard rule. Okay, so let me go to this is a custom rule, how a typical custom rule will be looking like. Okay, suppose I'm going for a standard rule. Okay, so suppose a standard rule here, and I'll execute again. So these are all my standard rules, like accumulation of a net payment standard, determine the partial period factor. Okay, so there are approximately 380 approximately standard. Okay, so all these are standard or custom. How you'll be knowing? So in case your standard case of standard, it will be mentioned as a STD. Okay, that is a standard rule. In this way, you can understand this is a standard rule or which is a custom rule. Okay, so in case if you would like to change something in your rule, okay, so what you can do, simply you have to copy that. Okay, so let's say you are using a, say I'm going for a particular rule, say let's say P020, which is actually talking about your say accumulation of a gross amount. Okay, simply if you go to that particular rule. Okay, so if you would like to understand the document, okay, so you can simply go to the document, you can read it, what is the purpose of this. So there is actually, they have not mentioned anything. Okay, so simply it is for accumulation of a gross amount. So since many of the rules actually you not be finding documentation, but that if you have to, in that case you have to follow your implementation guide. Okay, so the guide which I have provided to you, in that guide it will be mentioned, like there is a lot of, because there are so many rules, 380 rules, it is practically not possible to really understand each and every rule. So mostly in my projects also, I have not I generally I do not prefer to go through all and each and every, as and when required I refer. Okay, but it is because it is very vast. Okay, so understanding 380 rules, it's not pretty much practical. Okay, so what you can do, you just understand which rule is meant for what in case of any changes required. Okay, so simply how you will be choosing that particular rule. After choosing that particular rule, there is an option called copy option. Okay, so you can simply copy that. Okay, so as we copy the from a custom, so your standard rule to a custom one, the schema, same principle you have to apply here. Okay, so say P020, simply I will mention G020. Okay, so generally we mention G to for a better understanding. Okay, so simply you have to copy. So suppose it says somebody is already used, because it's a dummy system, so many people might have used the particular rules. Okay, already that has been consumed. Okay, so in that case you can use some custom name. Okay, so you can some meaningful name. Okay, so ZCA ZCUZ, say it is my accumulation of my gross amount. Okay, so CU for accumulation, G for gross amount. Okay, so that it will be more meaningful for you. Okay, after doing this, so let's say now you can see that customization request came now. Okay, so it will be part of your Canada configuration only. Simply click it. Okay, after doing this, you can see the P020 was copied. Now what you can do, simply you have to go to the change button. Now you can do whatever the changes is required in this particular rule. Okay, so you can now change it here. Okay, so now you will be seeing there are different sections to a particular rule. Okay, so what is a BWTCL? Actually, it is all about your processing classes. Okay, and in case of any, depending upon your employee group or employee subgroup. Okay, so here in this example, it's the employee group actually 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so if it is a scenario, then what other things will be doing? Okay, if it is a best, your employee grouping is 3, then what results table will be coming across? Okay, so depending upon your scenario, okay, suppose if employee group is 0, you can directly use your directly add that particular waste type. Okay, or your in case output, it will be just adding that value to your output table. Okay, so this is just an example of how you can accumulate your gross amount, whatever amount you are having. Okay, similarly your bank transfer, so in case of employee group is 5, then you will be having this addwt, which is slash 852. It will be adding that value in your output table. Okay, so in this way you can have a different scenario. Okay, so again you will be having bifurcation, so just very similar to your feature. Okay, so in this cases also you'll be having different scenario. Okay, so in case depending upon your scenario, you can manipulate all these conditions. Okay, suppose in case you would like to eliminate a particular scenario in a particular waste type time period. Okay, this is again it is a mix up of a time period as well, depending upon your time period ID. Okay, so all this documentation, what I will recommend to you. Okay, generally it is very overwhelming to go through all these rules, standard, custom, and everything. Okay, so what I will recommend to you, just go through the implementation guide which I have shared with you. Okay, so now what you can do after going through this. Okay, so I will just take you through some of the couple of things which you can easily grasp it here. Suppose navigation stack is not important here. Okay, so this is the first page, more page. So there is a section which I was about to show you. Okay, so after doing this, after doing any kind of changes, what you can do, so there is a different options here. I'll just tell you. So this is, there is an option you'll be seeing, shift F5. Okay, or there's a balance, you can see options. Okay, so simply after doing any changes to your rule, so in this way you can just simply click that. Okay, so you'll be finding some personal calculation rule is okay if you're doing any manipulation and all. Or suppose if you're trying to add something here. Okay, how you'll be adding something? So simply you have to change, there's a pencil button here. You can change your entry. Okay, so you can just type out something, and you can mention here BWTCL. Instead of that, let's say some other processing classes you would like to have. Okay, instead of 03, 0, you are using 04. And for that, you need to have a deep understanding of your those processing classes, accumulation classes, which I have talked about you in earlier session. Okay, so simply if you're just doing, after doing these changes, again you have to save it. Okay, suppose depending upon your PCR, depending upon scenario processing class. Okay, after doing this, what you will do, simply you have to again check it here. Okay, so till the time it is showing personal calculation rule okay, that means your PCR is okay. Okay, so that you can now embed in your schema. Okay, so what I can do now for you, so like I have mentioned this ZCUZ, this is one of my sample custom rule. Okay, ZCUZ, So now I'll be going to my schema, which is my, say, let's use Z. Did you remember what schema you were using?
K triple zero.
Z triple zero, right?
No, K triple zero.
K triple zero. Okay. K triple zero. K triple zero. What I can do, simply I will go to here. Okay. So what I will do, simply I'll be adding a line here, or I can directly, suppose it will be used in my scenario. Okay. So gross calculation will be happening just before this, gross accumulation and text processing. Okay. So I can mention that, say, ZCUZ, sorry, CUZ. Simply I will check whether it is fine or not. Okay. Okay. So in case, okay. So this is just try to show you. In case if you are entering some value which is not permitted. Okay. So why it is showing for function block. Okay. The parameter 2 is not allowed. Okay. So this is again a troubleshooting for your understanding. So view details. So what is the error? So you can, so that means wherever you are, there is a block or function, you can't use any custom whatever the rules you are. Okay. So what I can do, I will just simply cut it from here. Okay. So simply I will just put it here. Let's say whether it is allowing or not. Okay. So all these instruction you'll be finding in your okay. So for function copy also it is not allowed. Okay. So wherever you are using this copy, I can't use this particular rule here. Okay. So what I can do, simply I will try somewhere else. Okay. So this is just a trial and error method. Okay. But you can get those detailed documentation in the guide. Okay. In the deep in the implementation guide. Okay. So here it is giving some any other error. Okay, function lpbz has an incorrect value for parameter 2. Okay, what is the meaning? So that is that is actually, so lpbz means wherever you are beginning the loop, you can't use this. Okay, so in this way you can see where exactly it will fit. Okay, so what you can do, simply I will just cut it here again. Let's say I'll be adding here somewhere else. Okay, or let me change something here. Edit, add empty lines, one. Okay, so what I will do, I will just write here ZCUZ. Let me try. Okay, so in this case also it is not allowing me here. Okay, that means certain dependence is there which is actually restricting me to add it here. Okay, so that I need to understand, because that is, I just picked a random custom rule which may not be permitted in to mention here. Okay, though it is not permitting here to add that particular rules, because that is some creating some inconsistency. Okay, but in case, okay, if you are using some kind of say here they have written, so like custom, say, let me try it here somewhere else again.
There is a gross option with the block function. Why it is blocked for gross accumulation and text process?
Okay, so block means actually here exactly you are starting a different function. Okay, so previously whatever you'll be seeing were just initialized. Okay, so till the time data, the line number 70, if you're seeing, okay, till that time we have not added, means changed anything. Okay, so changed
Okay.
anything means just an initialization. It will just read your previous results data. Okay, after that it will just check whether it's those payroll modifier. Payroll modifier, it will check. So payroll modifier, where it will come. So all years you can see these are all starting with a K. Okay, so that
Okay. So
means,
can we add one line after 100?
yeah. So we can add in one line here. So what I can do, this is, there is a possible entries to generate. Yeah. So just a minute, I will just add here. So for that reason, there is a gap of 10 actually. So if you like to add something, okay. So just a minute, I will just, actually this is actually GUI screen I'm using. I'm not comfortable. Previously I was using some other screen. Okay. So I'm not able to see that add options here. Just a minute. Where is that add options? Add empty lines. Add empty line. Add empty line. Yeah. Okay. Suppose I would like to add 5 lines. Okay. I can mention 5. Number of blank lines. But actually it is going below actually. So I need to check it out. Okay. So otherwise what you can do, simply you can, if the line is item is adding beyond the last line item, simply
Mm-hmm.
you copy, means whatever the previous, means say starting from 100 to 150, okay, whatever, those line item you just copy and you can scroll, means you can paste it here, okay, so that there will be a gap again in between. So then you start writing. Okay, so this is actually not ideal way, but in this browser, which this is a browser based SAP GUI, or the latest one, this is a problem I'm having. But actually I need to figure it out, like how to add line item directly from here. I think it should be there only. Okay, but it is actually, it is GUI is little tricky. So you'll be able to add here line item. Otherwise simply you have to just, after this, copy whatever you are seeing. Okay, so you can just shift 5 or 6 times below. Then you have to write down like 111, 112. Okay, whatever the custom things you are having. Okay, that you can mention it there. Okay, so this is the ideal way of doing. You can manipulate. Okay, other than that, I would like to show something else, which I was talking about, those operations basically. Okay, so where exactly you can read. Okay, if you are not interested to go through the documentation of your implementation guide, simply you can go through those. Even I follow the same. Okay, so like if you go, simply choose your operations. There are two object type. One is the P0 for transaction. Suppose if you like to understand, say XMES, this is an operations. Okay, so you can simply go to the particular operations. Okay, then it will say, actually this is meant for, output messages in the payroll log. Okay, for any kind of message. Okay, what kind of message you'll be using, and it is not a country specific. You can see this is a standard one, and it is applicable for all the country including Canada. Okay, similarly the operation which I was talking about, the table operation. Table, that is another operation. Why it is used, you can find out here. Prepare access to the table field. Okay, so what it will do, it will again applicable for all other countries. Okay, and you can go through that detail about it. Okay, and also good thing is you can find out here again. Okay, so there is a documentation. Most of the operation will be finding documentation. There is an I section, or you can click Control F8. If you go to the documentation, you will be finding the detail about it. Okay, so it is the best way. Even I learned this way. Okay, so whenever you are studying or understanding this kind of operation, you can directly go to the documentation part, and there is a section called procedure use. Okay, detail about it. Okay, so it will explain which, in what are the scenario you'll be using such kind of operations. Okay, it will explain in detail about it. So similarly the LME operation which I was talking about, is which you'll be using most frequently in a typical project. Eliminate rounding off. Okay, it will eliminate your period indicator. Okay, so depending upon your periods and all. Okay, and where you use list, that you'll be finding. So this is another important one, which suppose you are interested to, you are working in a support project, you would like to understand a typical object or typical rules, in which rules PCR has been used, or which are the waste types it is affecting. Okay, it is impacting. Okay, so in this way, simply if you are choosing a check where used list, you will be finding a list of PCR. Okay, so as it is a dummy system, as I was mentioning, there are many rules where exactly, because this is a popular, this LME operation is a very popular operations. Okay, so you can find out, see lot of ways, lot of PCRs rules actually it has been used, and which are the waste types also affected or impacted using that particular operation, you can find out here. This is the entire list of these rules. Okay, so these are, in this way you can, this is very easy to understand. If you are working in a support project, you are working in that, so you can simply go to the operations and simply click that where you used list. Okay, in this way you can find out what are the dependency. Okay, in case you are changing something to the PCR, then during your testing also you have to again check all these PCRs wherever it is impacting. In this way you can understand how this, where exactly it will be impacting your entire all these in case you are doing any such changes. Okay, same goes with your LME operations. Okay, another operation which I was talking about, generally what you can do, you can also create your own operation. There's nothing like that you can't create, but exactly we do not, whatever the SAP has given a lot of 300 plus, as I was mentioning, many times we do not require it. Okay, so mostly the standard operations which are there, we can directly use those operations and all. You can directly manipulate, and that's a different operation you can use it. Okay, in this way you can manipulate. Okay, so there are, I would recommend to go through all those operations once. Okay, whatever the list is there. So all those scenario you can come across in those operations. BWTCL. Okay, what does this do? Okay, all these operation you can go through. Okay, so in this, with this, in the next session, what I will explaining will be, I'll be explaining more some another topic that will be related to a FICO, how we'll be integrating. Now we understood the concept of your payroll. Now we'll be trying to understand how we'll be integrating your payroll to your finance. Okay, so this is again interesting topic one. And generally, I'll be talking. It will take another one session for you. After this, we'll be having the last session, which is for your payslip configuration, which I'll talking about. Then after that, whenever you will be having, depending upon within next 1 month. Okay, so maybe whenever you are having any doubts, then I'm happy to help you. Okay, but officially this two session will be up to this session. Tomorrow we'll be having one session. Tomorrow, are you free or how is it your?
No, not tomorrow. Tomorrow, day after tomorrow.
Okay, okay, okay.
Because